Now available in paperback. Those who refuse the gift of eternal life are condemned to wander in the darkness of eternal night. Get your copy of Eternal Night at online booksellers today. This week, the Seattle Seahawks decided to release defensive lineman Chad Wheeler after he was arrested for participating in an alleged act of domestic violence against his black girlfriend. Now, when I take a critical examination of this incident, I can see how this story is being covered very differently than that of the Baltimore Ravens running back Ray Rice, and I can see how the NFL sees black football players completely different than white football players. And I can also see how the mainstream media is trying to tell a completely different story as related to white male Chad Wheeler in comparison to black male Ray Rice as related to domestic violence. Now, when it comes down to the way the Chad Wheeler story has been covered, it looks like the mainstream media is trying to give Chad Wheeler the benefit of a doubt. And in a report I was watching on ABC World News a couple of days ago, they made every effort to minimize everything as related to Chad Wheeler, and they didn't really present many details as related to why he was released, and they presented only a general statement as related to the arrest of as related to domestic violence. Now, in comparison, when it came down to the Ray Rice incident, this incident was practically blown up by the mainstream media, and they practically presented the video of Ray Rice putting his hands on his girlfriend and ran it on every media outlet and practically made Ray Rice the poster child for domestic violence and presented him as the super black brute who savagely slapped his wife until she was unconscious. But in the case of your Chad Wheeler, they practically minimized the story, making it look like this was just an isolated domestic violence incident. However, when you start to do the research into the details of the Chad Wheeler incident, you clearly see how your Chad Wheeler's case was far more devastating than that of Ray Rice. Now, according to reports, your Chad Wheeler, as he got into this incident with his black girlfriend, he dislocated her arm and then went on to strangle her and smother her with a pillow in this incident. And after he had smothered her with this pillow and strangled her until she blacked out, he then, as she woke up a few hours later, said, "Oh, you're still alive." And that's quite troubling because when we take a look at the incident critically, we can clearly see that this is clearly a case of attempted murder as related to Chad Wheeler. And it looks like the mainstream media is trying to minimize and downplay the aspect of attempted murder with Chad Wheeler, and they're trying to make it look like he's more innocent as related to the details of the case. Meanwhile, your Ray Rice, who was dealing with an incident between himself and his girlfriend and his wife at the time, this was presented as him being a super brute, and people were making efforts to try to destroy your Ray Rice in the media. Meanwhile, we have the mainstream media trying to downplay the incident as related to Chad Wheeler, and we also have the NFL looking to downplay the incident as related to Chad Wheeler, and it clearly shows us that there's a clear difference between the way the NFL sees domestic violence between black and white. When it comes down to the black man, they want to make every effort to punish the black man, But when it comes down to the white man gets a pass for his egregious behavior. When I take another critical examination of this incident, it's a real warning sign to many of these black women out here who want to talk about going out here to swirl. And the reason why I believe that this Chad Wheeler incident is a warning to all of those swirlers out here is because this incident clearly proves a point that I presented in my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. Now, in a chapter of Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, I talk about black women getting involved with white men. And one of the dangers of getting involved with white men is the fact that you won't have any sort of protection under the law the way a white woman would. Now, this case proves that because we see the police department downplaying the attempted murder of this black woman and them minimizing the violence that this Chad Wheeler participated in. Clearly, this man meant to murder this black woman, and this is clearly shown to us by the alleged statements he made that, oh, you're still alive. So this really shows us how your white supremacy does not really value a black woman's life when she's involved in a relationship with a white man. And it's really troubling that your Chad Wheeler is not being charged with attempted murder, but is only being charged with domestic violence. And the fact that people are making excuses for Chad Wheeler's behavior, saying that it has to do with alleged drug use or him not being on mental health medication, this is a warning sign to many of these women who talk about swirling and pursuing relationships with white men. If you do this, you may possibly not be able to get any sort of justice through the criminal justice system, and efforts will be made to make this white male the person who gets a pass for doing harm against you. So this is a very troubling incident, and many black women need to take notice of this type of incident because in a white supremacist system like we have here in America, that white man's word will be taken as truth. Moreover, that white supremacist system will support and uphold that white man in whatever wrongdoing he participates in. So this whole incident really is a warning sign for many of these black women who want to talk about swirling and pursuing relationships with white men. It really showcases a red flag, which is you may not be able to get any recourse through the criminal justice system if you would get involved with one of these white men, and that whole system may make efforts to try to minimize the harm done to you, like what was done to this black woman, when it's clear that this male went out here to attempt to murder this woman, and he thought he probably would have been able to get away with it, and he wanted to use excuses like, oh, it was me not being on medication, or him not being able to make her submit. But if you cannot make things work in a relationship with said woman, the thing that a man does is he just breaks up with the woman and gets on with his life. That's what a man does when he goes out here and things aren't working with a woman. He doesn't go out here and try to attempt to murder said woman. No, what that man does is he packs his stuff and goes his way. She packs her stuff and goes her way. And that's the end of it. Now you've also got this same group of swirlers also presenting another argument. And this argument is that black men should have done something to protect said black woman from Chad Wheeler. Well, there's nothing any black man could have done in this case because this was an interracial relationship between Chad Wheeler and this black woman, and you cannot say that black men had anything to do with this, nor can you blame black men for not being there, because once a black woman goes out here and pursues said relationship with white man, then that relationship is between her and that white man, and it is only for law enforcement to get involved. And again, in a white supremacist system, if you get involved with law enforcement, you know sometimes the outcome, especially when you're black, that the outcome is not going to be favorable for you. So to say that black men had something to do with this is just completely ridiculous, because once a woman decides to go outside of her race and pursue a relationship with a white man, whatever happens between her and that white man is between her and that white man, and that black man can't do anything about anything as related to that relationship, because he has nothing to do with that relationship. Now, there are some who want to use the protect black woman argument as related to this case, but that doesn't really work here either. Again, protection comes with submission to the leadership and authority of the black men in the community and the black man you're involved in a relationship with. And this black woman decided to have a relationship with a white man, and she decided to go outside of her community. So she has voided the unofficial, unwritten contract between black men and black women, and is no longer under the jurisdiction of black men to receive protection from. So this woman, when she went outside of her race, she suffered many of the consequences of going outside of her race, and she went outside of her community to live with this white man. And one of the consequences of getting involved with this white man is you are in his home on his terms, and when you are in his home on his terms, you are at his mercy. And when you're at his mercy, you are in a very dangerous place. And this is something that flies over the heads of many of your swirlers out here, and many of those who believe that white men are allegedly so better. They're not understanding that once you enter into this white man's home, you are in his environment on his terms, and the legal system is going to go out of its way to protect him, and the mainstream media is going to go out of its way to protect him. And that's something many black women, really like this one, didn't really think about. All they were thinking was, I'm getting the attention of this white man, and they're not understanding that you may probably be dealing with a white male who could be extremely dangerous, and if this relationship goes the wrong way, he could possibly get away with your murder. And that's probably what your Chad Wheeler was thinking, whether he was on or off his meds allegedly. He was thinking he was going to be able to get away with this murder because this was a black woman, and a black woman's life has less value than that of a white woman. So that's what he was probably thinking at the end of the day when he was choking this woman and beating her up and dislocating her arm so she couldn't fight back. He was thinking, I could get away with this. And this is something, again, many swirlers aren't really understanding about these white males. Again, white males in a white supremacist society are at the top of society, and they are going to be protected by these institutions like the media, like law enforcement, and like the NFL, who have all made efforts to make it where Chad Wheeler is made to look like less of a bad guy than he actually is. Because when we look at the details of the case, we can clearly see that your Chad Wheeler looks like he was attempting to murder this black woman. And this whole case clearly shows us the dark side of swirling, and it shows us the dark side of dealing with a relationship with a white male, because this white male, what he can do in these situations is he can turn the tables on a black woman. And sadly, what can happen is she could wind up losing her life, and this guy could wind up possibly trying to get away with it, and even getting the whole case minimized, because that's what happened here. We had police minimizing things by not charging this man with the attempted murder he's supposed to be charged with, or the media going out here and trying to make it look like it was a case of domestic violence when it looks like a case of a possible attempted murder. And we also have the NFL giving minimizing statements, trying to make it not look as bad as it possibly is. And again, this is the scary part about the dark side of swirling. And it's a point that I made in the chapter I wrote in my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. And many black women, they really need to take a critical look at this case. And many black men need to look at this case, because it's clear to us that there's a difference between the world of black and white. And we see that by the way they're minimizing things as related to Chad Wheeler, whereas in the case of Ray Rice, they were presenting him as the ultimate brute, practically wanting to make it where he could never make a living again. But with your Chad Wheeler, they're just saying, oh, he was just released by the Seahawks, and they're trying to probably find some place to put him so he can work again. But in the case of Ray Rice, he could never work in the NFL again. He was presented as a monster and a black brute and a super violent predator, and was practically painted on every channel, slapping his wife, and presented as a monster, even though in the case of Ray Rice, the video clearly showed he was hit first and was reacting. Now, I don't condone domestic violence, but this was what was shown in the video. But in this case of an alleged attempted murder, we have everybody minimizing it for the white man and making it look like, oh, he's not that bad of a guy, when it's clear from the details of the case he may be far more dangerous than Ray Rice ever was. And everybody's trying to give a pass to Chad Wheeler, and that's what really shows us how much racism still goes on in the NFL, and how much racism still goes on in our media, and how we clearly see that there's a difference between the way they present your black NFL player like Ray Rice, and a difference between the one they present the white one. They minimize the coverage for the white guy, and they blow up the coverage for the black guy. And again, we can't let them get away with that, because this just clearly shows, again, a racial disparity. And again, when we clearly see the violence that was perpetrated allegedly by your Chad Wheeler, we really need more intense coverage on this, because this man is an attempted murderer, and all the NFL and the mainstream media want to do is give him a pass. Meanwhile, Ray Rice, they want to just destroy him and make him look like a super bad guy, went for his incident, but they don't want to give this attempted murderer that same coverage, allegedly. And that's troubling, because here we have a guy who possibly was looking to take this black woman's life, and everybody's trying to show that this black woman's life doesn't matter. Again, where is Black Lives Matter and all these other people? This is an incident where a black woman is being harmed and done bad, but when it comes down to the perpetrator, who's a white man, nobody wants to come out and call him on his egregious behavior. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up my book and learn more about the black women being single, you can pick up that book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find it on Smashwords and the iBookstore. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available on Kindle, E-Steam No Good Deed. The Devilish Diva scares some stick-up kids straight in this action-packed E-Steam series comic. Get E-Steam No Good Deed on Kindle for 99 cents today.